Have you ever felt this internal conflict of having faith and also taking care of your mental health? Like feeling like, how can I really believe in God, but then also experience fear? Or how can I really have faith in God and have suicidal thoughts, right? How can I actually really truly be praying and believing that God can take care of things, and I'm seeing a therapist to help me walk through my problems with, right? Is that you? Do you find yourself with this internal conflict and just wondering, like, can I actually do both? Like, can I really believe in God and still seek therapy? Can I really still have faith in who God says he is and still have moments of fear? Well, let's talk about it today on the episode of Unapologetic Living with Natasha, titled, She's About Her Faith and Therapy. Let's go. It's Natasha.
Unapologetic Living.
What is up? Natasha here, your host of Unapologetic Living with Natasha. And this is another great, amazing episode that is going to blow your mind, that's going to drop gems, and that's going to have you thinking like, I need to start being unapologetic. And so today's episode is all about faith and therapy. I'm a therapist, as you know, and I'm a God girl, as you know. So the combo just makes sense. And so, of course, I had to have my girl, Tashira, join me because she's also a God girl and she's also a therapist. Hello. Okay. So we're going to be talking about faith and therapy, what that means, how to be unapologetic about your faith, and how to be unapologetic about your mental health all at the same time. Welcome, my girl, Tashira. Hey, girl.
Hey.
Thank you so much for being on here. We met via social media. We just dropping in each other's DMs like, hey, girl, hey.
Yes. Yep.
And we are here. And so I appreciate you being here and just being part of this conversation. I really wanted to talk about about just being unapologetic about taking care of your mental health and being a believer at the same time, because so many, I don't know if you come across this as a therapist or just being a God girl. I know for me on both ends, where there's like, it always feels like this separation between faith and therapy, like separation is like church and state, right? Where it's like the two cannot coexist, right? And you have to do one or the other, right? And you can't do both. And I really want people to recognize that no, both can exist. And let's talk about why they can, so you can free yourself from feeling like you are not being a believer, enough of a believer if you're just seeking your faith, if you're seeking therapy, or you're not taking care of your mental health if you're only seeking faith and just praying about it, right? So what are your thoughts about faith and therapy? Well, how would you define the difference between the two?
Well, you know, it's so funny because as social workers, we learn about the importance of integrating religion and spirituality. Us being competent in that and understanding what that looks like for different cultures that we serve. So what I do know is that it is a very intricate and important aspect of how we live our lives. So there's no separation of it. Your faith is tied to your beliefs, what ultimately sets the foundation for you and your human self, right? And all the things that you're dealing with in this world that we're operating in, and whatever your faith is. So a lot of us, if we're Christians, we understand that there's a spiritual realm to things, and you know, this fleshly world that we live in, there's a lot of things that we face with that. And so because of it, we may rely on our faith, but at the same time, it's okay to take care of your mental. And a lot of times people like to even, I don't know why this is such a separate topic from your physical health, because if you were dealing with something that may lead to cancer or some type of autoimmune or something, you have to go to a doctor, right? Like, yes, the Lord can give you, yes, whatever you believe in can heal you, and however you guys go about that, but you still got to go to a doctor. God created these professions are created for a reason.
That part.
For a reason. So both of them are very important. Both of them can come together. And I'm looking forward to us just talking more about it today. And having people be, comfortable and not feeling ashamed or guilty because they want to do both.
Yeah.
I am a therapist that identifies as a Christian woman, and I also see a Christian therapist as well. I have experience with not dealing with a therapist that doesn't identify the same faith as mine, but I chose that person for a reason because I want to be able to talk about my spirituality. I want to be able to talk about, hey, I'm struggling with, loving my neighbor, loving my friends, or doing right, and someone who can understand and also offer to pray with me after my sessions.
Yeah. I love that. So people always ask me, they're like, well, how do you like differentiate the two? Like, how would you describe the two? I think one of the things that often use as an analogy is like, okay, so mental health is more like the science aspect, right? It's going to help you understand the brain and how your brain is working, how your thoughts and your habits all interact with each other and influence each other, and how your experiences can influence how you see the world, right? So it's coming from the scientific realm, different theories that help you make those connections, and from a natural aspect. And then faith comes in from the supernatural, where it's like, it's going to teach you how spiritually, like spirits and demons, and how that's impacting how you're showing up, how that's impacting how you're thinking, how that's impacting your habits and your thought process, right? And so when you bring the two together, I say this all the time to my clients who are believers, like, we end up having like a cheat sheet, because it's like, not only are you in therapy going to get like the natural aspect and learn scientifically how your brain is working and functioning based on all your experiences, right? But you're also going to be able to apply the biblical aspects that teach you how this on the spiritual or on supernatural end, how that's all integrating. And then you now have this, like, you are able to recognize, like, yes, I'm having these negative thoughts on the scientific end, right? Like, these negative thoughts are impacting my, how I'm showing up or how I see the world, and also recognizing how the enemy likes to use those negative thoughts as a way to attack, to make you feel spiritually that you're not enough, or to make you believe that God is not with you, or all these things, right? And so when you're able to put the two together, it's like, there's a cheat code. It's a whole cheat code.
Yes. Yeah. And understanding how people identify that they've been in cycles in all their lives. And a lot of times you've been in a spiritual warfare. So understand it. And so, listen, you have a therapist, whether they brand themselves as a Christian therapist or they share that with themselves. So like when I do what's called like a biopsychosocial spiritual assessment, because they add that in there. If a client identifies that they are a believer, I share the same. And I ask them, in what ways would you like me to incorporate your belief into our sessions? Would you like me to share scriptures with you? Would you like for us to have conversations of things that you're experiencing spiritually, right? Or it's simply after our sessions, do you want me to ask if you want prayer? My therapist does that, and I love it, because it'd be hard. Sessions be hard.
Listen,
it'd be as a
the work.
It'd be hard, and I know, and I just started talking with my clients about kind of aftercare for after your sessions, because stuff be very, very heavy. But I love that I've been able to identify my spirituality with my clients, because we can talk about different books of the Bible. I can refer them to books that I read to help them to build their faith, and also be comfortable. So you know what? Yes, I'm dealing with this depression thing, but I'm also understanding that, the Lord wants me to have joy and this peace in the ways that I can go about. So I love the fact that we can build those two together.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Like I'm same. I wouldn't say I'm a Christian counselor, but I am a therapist who is open to bringing in faith and biblical principles into the session. So I say that to people all the time that are believers, like, hey, if you want to bring in books of the Bible or bringing in discussions about faith and how this incorporates, like, we could totally have that conversation. And like you're saying, I do love bringing the two, because it just makes it it's adds just a whole nother level of, I guess I would say, freedom and strategy to really deal with it, instead of just having this one area. Because when you think about it, like, scriptures are just affirmations, right? When you think about like affirmations, you can use scriptures as forms of affirmations to help you get through the day, for example, right?
But you can declare over yourself, over your life.
Exactly. And they have a stronger feeling, because if there's belief behind what the word is said. It's not just like someone saying like the typical, like a worldly typical affirmation. It's like, this is a Bible biblically based statement. Yeah. I mean, even speaking about that, right? The biblical aspects, I think sometimes, or not even sometimes, I think one of the reasons why there has been this separation between faith and therapy is because within the church, aspect that's been, just pray about it. If you went to another believer, or you went to someone at your church and said, hey, I'm experiencing this, or I'm having anxiety. Like, oh, you don't have anxiety? The Bible says don't fear, right?
How many times does the Lord say not to worry in the Bible? Okay? Yeah. I still forget the number, but it's a lot. Do not fear, do not worry, multiple times.
Yeah, and then so it's like, it's like this thing, like, you shouldn't have to worry about God, or what are you worried about? So it's like there's like this dismissal of the true fleshly feelings that the Bible also talks about us just being humans that have been born in sin, and so we have these fleshly experiences. And I think I don't know not one person in the Bible, because even Jesus, who did not feel some form of anxiety, fear, stress, frustration, like all the feelings that we always feel. And the Bible is not saying that you won't feel anxious, but it's saying, like, even when you're feeling, when that's coming up, have me to help you, so you don't have to worry about staying stuck in that anxiety. It's pretty much what the Bible is saying, right? But how do you think that then perpetuates the stigma of mental health?
That's where people get stuck. They get confused, and a lot of the shame and guilt is there. So, like, some people may seek out pastoral counseling, right? Where that pastor or that minister can really work with you and really, I guess I use the word regurgitate what's in the word to help you be empowered and motivated. But like you said, they don't have the knowledge of that science part, right? Where they can really tell you, like, what's going on, because people are experiencing trauma, and you can't just think that you're going to go through trauma, any forms of abuse, whether you've gone through or you witnessed it, that you're just going to, like, read your scriptures and then, like, it's going to go away. Trauma, it changes people's brain. If we compare somebody who hasn't experienced, you'll see a lot of you'll see the differences. So, and it's so funny because I think about it, I'm like, the Lord also tells us to seek wise counsel. Now, your wise counsel can come, like I said, from pastoral counseling, but also from a therapist, the Lord knows we're going to go through, we're human, we're going to go through stuff, right? And that's why I'm like, and I think that's why when I think about, our professions, being social workers, being licensed clinical social workers, we understand that the work that we do is spiritual. Yeah. We understand that. We're dealing with the vulnerabilities, the pain, and we're overly exposed to that every day, right? And so when we have someone who heavily relies on their faith and their background, I mean, it's up to us in our competency to understand what that may be. And, I may be Christian, this person may study Buddhism or whatever like that, but being able to even guide them in a way that, what it says about their beliefs, right? Because your spirituality and when we live our lives, it invites you to be your whole self. Yeah. So in our profession, we invite them to be their whole selves, right? There's no separating. Just because you're a believer don't go to therapy, don't talk to somebody, hey, I'm not feeling myself, I'm not feeling good, I'm not, I'm waking up, I'm just having thoughts, it's just not. A lot of it, and it's hard. It's not like a black and white thing. They're very meshed together. Very much. It's like kind of entangled, but this is why you have you fellowship, and you have community, you have other people, and you seek wise counsel to help you navigate the seasons that you go through.
I think that's why it's so important for people within the church to talk about mental health, because there's often this like unrealistic vision that if you're a Christian, then you won't go through pain. Yeah. Right? Because nobody talks about the pain. Most people are talking about, oh, I feel good, joyous, celebrating, praising, right? Yeah. There might be phrases like, I don't look the way that I don't look like what I went through.
Yeah.
Right? I don't look like what I went through, right? And everybody's praising God and all that, right? But nobody talks about what they actually went through. They just talk about, I'm here now, right? Yeah. And I mean, I can even remember I was at I used to minister, not minister, but I used to serve on my youth ministry, and we had an event. It was like a family oriented event. So it was like people from other, we partnered with another ministry, a family ministry. And so we're doing this event. So we're all like in small groups. And so when we're talking about fear and anxiety, I'm always still like, I'm the one that's like, fear exists, y'all. Like I'm the one that has to have that, like put it out there, because there is still that persona of saying like, oh, you don't have anxiety. So it was one of the questions about something related to anxiety. And one of the people who were moderating, and they were like going from different groups, was saying, so the kids were talking about like experiencing fear because this generation they honest about their mental health, which I love. I love the Gen Zers.
Yes,
they don't play about their mental health.
Right.
They are honest and open about it, which I love. And so they were just talking about sometimes they feel anxious and this and that. And she was like, what we just said, like but yeah, when you got God, you don't have anxiety. Like when you believe in God, you don't experience anxiety or you have no fear when you have God. And I think there's this misconception that if I believe in God, then I will never experience fear. Or if I'm feeling fearful, then that means I'm not trusting and believing in God. And it's like, that's when the stigma happens. Because now I don't want to talk about out loud to say how I really feel. Because then if I say I am anxious or I'm suicidal,
right.
or I have, or I'm, I have these outbursts, right? Or I'm doing all these things. It's just, you end up feeling shameful because it's like, well, technically then I'm not really believing if I'm experiencing that. And it's like, no, that's not true. You are able to, God put these things in the Bible because he knew these things would come up for us. And he's saying that through me, if you give it to me, that will help. That's the strategy, right? We're talking about coping strategies as therapists. We might say, take deep breaths, right? Or we might say, talk to a friend, right? Right. But, and so the Bible's just giving you additional strategies where it says like, okay, one way is like, you can cast all your cares on me by coming to me, giving it to me. And that's through prayer, right? Yeah. That's a strategy. Not saying that fear is going to go away or you shouldn't be feeling anxious, but it's talking about when you're feeling anxious, give it to me. Pray about it. Give me it. And then let it go.
Yeah.
We talk about letting things go all the time in therapy. Like, you're going to breathe, take some deep breaths, let it go, move forward. This is just a strategy on how to let it go.
Yeah.
And I think if we recognize the two, these are just strategies in the Bible to help you work through these emotions. Not saying you'll never go through these emotions, but these are strategies to help you work through them. Then you recognize that mental health exists. And the Bible's just full of a bunch of self-care strategies on how to care for your mental health.
Yeah. And what I wanted to add was that when you say that, God, is in the Bible, all the things doing what to bring to him because he knew that we experienced those things. We were never promised a trouble-free life.
That part.
Never. No one ever said we was going to be skipping the loo for years. We not promised. So because these things are, because of we're on this side of things, right? This side of, we're going to go through some things. We are fighting against things that we cannot see, other issues, other wounded individuals. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so is all of those things are for our good. And we should know that we're going to be faced with trials and tribulations. But here's how we're going to get to the other side. Yeah. Seeking wise counsel, reading the word, giving things. And honestly, a lot of times too, because I don't like to make things like super deep, giving things to the Lord really is like, stop leaning on your own understanding. Stop trying to figure it out on your own. Seek other people, be in community and fellowship, lean on other beliefs. That I can only speak for, we're both Christians, so we understand what that means. Like being in fellowship, touch and agree, and two and agree, and we already know how that goes. Breaking down mountains, having just a tiny, have you ever seen a mustard seed? Little baby crumb of faith, and that pleases him. That's it. Yeah. But we need to be able to have these conversations, and I think that it's an enriching experience to be someone who's seeking therapy, to identify as this spirituality, this religion, have someone else that identify as it, and have these conversations right in the sessions. Yeah, that is the best one. I've never had a Christian therapist before, so this is my third time around in therapy, and I never did. Yeah. And so it's so different because when I'm bringing up things, right? Yeah, we're talking about, we're getting to the root of your fear and why you're anxious about this, but this is really a heart issue as well. Yeah. And we know what the scriptures say about things that flow from the heart, all the issues that flow. So it's also a heart issue. So to be able to talking about the science part, all the things that have happened that has caused me to be in this anxious, but also the issues of your heart, right? What are the things and how you're treating them and all the things, but just to say that it's rewarding when you can marry the two together. They should be married together. To get you, because you're invited to bring your whole self. Yeah. And that's what I love about being a social worker is the fact that we can bring our whole selves to our profession. Yeah. I love social work. Yeah. I don't care what anybody says. Social work is the best profession. The best profession. But I would agree. I think, as a therapist, like when I
am meeting with a client who is a believer compared to a client who's not. I mean, enjoy both. But when I am speaking with someone that is a believer, I don't have to worry about talking in code, because at the end of the day, God still speaks through me, even with my non-believers. I'm just not necessarily saying directly like this is the Bible saying this, or this is a story from Job or something like that, right? So I'm still speaking life into them, just indirectly. But when I'm speaking to another believer, I'm able to just be very direct with it, and we're able to talk about the Bible and refer to stories within the Bible that are relatable to their story, and they're able to make those connections, and they're able to see like, yeah, I do remember reading that. I remember reading about that. Like, so it's like, and it is a different experience when you're able to talk about on that spiritual end, because when you talk about on the spiritual end, it's your spirit is all about with your soul. So it hits different when you are talking about what's happening in the natural, and you're able to connect it with it within your internal and spiritual end. Yeah, it's different. It's different. Yeah. Well, I think it's a great place to park for a commercial break. So make sure you come back. We are going to continue this amazing conversation on Unapologetic Living with Natasha. Are you ready to stop playing small and finally protect your peace and execute consistently? Welcome to Unapologetic Living University, an online coaching hub helping women gain the tools to set boundaries without guilt and execute goals with unshakable confidence. No more people pleasing, no more perfection paralysis, no more waiting for permission. Scan the QR code now and enroll. Welcome back to Unapologetic Living with Natasha. I'm with my girl Tashira, and we're talking about faith and therapy and just being unapologetic about your faith and therapy. And right before commercial break, we were talking about just like recognizing or being able to be at a place where there isn't that shame about taking care of your mental health, even though you are a believer, right? And so how do you think like having that confidence within your faith can help somebody just be unapologetic about seeking therapy or just taking care of their mental health? It doesn't necessarily have to be therapy, but taking care of their mental health.
Yeah. So I think it's all about where we set our foundation for what satisfies us. So a lot of times we look to man, and man meaning like actually like a man, like a person, woman or man, to satisfy the things that we feel that's missing. And we know as believers that only God can be the source of our full satisfaction. Anything and in any ways that he brings people along our path can add to that. But if we don't have that rooted in how he loves us, how he cares for us, all the things he says in Jeremiah 29:11, okay? We're going to be always searching for that, which can really just send you on a whole like goose chase with yourself, because you're looking for something where you need to go to the main source for that. And I often tell people, like, I've been more, probably within the last year, I've been more reading, intentional about doing my own self-Bible studies, reading the word every single day to help to feed my spirit is very, very important to me. And just all the ways that I've read about what how God thinks of us, the things he wants from us. I say, if anybody is struggling with low self-esteem or being unapologetically themselves, they need to be in the word, because you should feel bossed up.
Listen,
when you hear what God says that we should have and what he has set for us, right? And oftentimes we miss it. We don't, and not that you miss it is forever like missed, but that you don't get to get a taste of all that he has for us, because we're not rooting ourselves in him and his love and things like that. You should feel bossed up when you read your word. You should feel like, hold on.
Right.
I am literally placing your name in the script where it says it, and your confidence, like you being fearless, because he didn't create us to have any spirit of fear, any spirit of feeling less than. He said we are the head and not the tail. So when you read those things and you fully believe it, you're going to walk around like, well, this is how he wanted to wove me together, how he wanted to create me, how he took and had eyes like this and a height like this and a complexion. He did, even to bring two people together to be, you know what I'm saying? So I would say, as somebody who has struggled with that, and still working on being unapologetically myself, I have to rely on that always. So I'm going to say, keep yourself rooted in what he says about you and what he thinks of you, and go from there. But it got to be your belief. We take to heart what a lot of people say to us and what they do to us, because we're looking for them to do all these things. We're looking to root ourselves in their words and their perception of us, and not what he says.
Yeah, there's so many things that you said. I got like 5 points. I'm like trying to I'm doing my therapist thing right now, where I'm like trying to remember the points. You're in session. You're like, all right, they said this. I gotta remember that. I say gotta make sure I bring that back up. But yeah, I mean, there's so many things that you said. I mean, even the part about, the first part about people's perceptions. I think that goes back to what we were saying in the first segment about how we end up separating therapy and faith because of this perception that people are going to believe or look at me as not being Christian enough. I'm not going to be a believer enough. If I'm talking about I have moments of fear, or that I had thoughts of suicide, or that I do see a therapist, right? I don't want people to think that I'm not a believer, or I don't really trust in God. So I'm not going to say anything, right? Or I'm not going to even do it, right? So there's that piece. But like you said, if you are really rooted in knowing who you are and recognize that when Jesus died on the cross, shame died there, judgment died there, guilt died, all the things that the enemy wants you to get stuck and trapped in, so you don't be your true self, and you don't get the help that you need, or you don't connect with the people you need to connect with, died at the cross. And so when you recognize that, then yes, you are able to unapologetically care for your mental health. And I think that even connects with also the aspect, right, of when you are being that true unapologetic self, or unapologetic about your faith, you also recognize that, me seeking therapy is really just part of, like you were saying, it's like the spirit of fear, right? So when you're in therapy and you're seeking therapy, you recognize, when you're talking with your therapist about fear, being fearful or feeling anxious, and you also know that this is a spirit as well, right? It is an emotion. So the spiritual, the science is talking about how it's an emotion, but also when you're recognizing that this is a spirit that the enemy is using to get me stuck, right? That the enemy is using to get me to doubt myself, or to cause me to freeze and not move forward during the path that God has for me. Then you find yourself getting consumed by the fear, right? But when you're able to recognize too, okay, it's an emotion that's coming up, and I can see how the enemy now is going to use this emotion to get me to get stuck and have me all these thoughts. You're able to put those two things together. Listen, you can't be touched, because you recognize, okay, I recognize, yes, fear, I hear you, I see you. And enemy, I see how you trying it, right?
Be like, dig the move, right? Because he don't come to me to dig the move.
But when you're in therapy, you're able to recognize how that all is connecting, right? With your thoughts, and then with how your emotions are, how your thoughts are then cause you to feel a certain way, and then how it's going to lead to your actions. And then when you're in your word, you're able to recognize how the enemy uses that natural part of us. That's just the emotions that's going to come up, the thoughts that are going to come up. We're able to see how the enemy uses that to then trick us and tempt us.
Because the whole goal is for the enemy to convince you that everything is a lie, right? What's said about you, like I just said a few moments ago in the word, his whole goal is to convince you that all that God stands for, all that he says and all of that, it's a lie. Just to bring you to the other side, right? It's all a lie. So when we stay in that cycle, and this is why I think it's just so important that we, and even as therapists who don't brand themselves as Christian therapists, Christian counselors, it's so important in how this piece right here in our self-disclosure is powerful, right? To be able to, because it's teaching moments, it still makes sense. It's still clinically and spiritually appropriate. And I want to say clinically, we're dealing with the whole person. We have to be able to, I think it's the knowledge part, like where we are grounded in our faith spiritually, or the things that we've gone through, we can be able to teach our clients, right? And show them and lay it out for them in so many ways. And really, I look at it as like, this is just a space. Like, we came together, you're having these natural responses to life, but we're going to bring the spiritual side of it. We're going to have them together. It's just the perfect space and time to be able to do that. But the whole goal is to get you to not be bold and fearless and confident and unapologetically, for you to walk around in confusion, because we know the Lord is not an author of confusion or chaos. So the moment you got that going on, when you're connected to people or your workplace and all that, it's time to roll up out of there, right? The whole point is to keep you like that so that you don't lean on them, and that all of this is just a lie. All of it is a lie.
And in therapy, the therapist helps you recognize those patterns that you probably not even aware of. Because even in church, you can be hearing the minister talk about something, but you're not able to connect those dots, because the enemy in that moment can be getting you to have pride show up. Like, oh, he's not talking to me. Or this don't got nothing to do with me. Or I'm not that bad, right? But when you're in therapy, the therapist directly will say, what I'm noticing is, you recognize this pattern, and then God will use the therapist to help bring it front and forward, bring it face value, right, of what's happening, right? And even when you try to run, the therapist, if you have a good therapist will confront you when you're trying to avoid it. And like, I'm noticing you using humor right now to avoid this conversation. Or I know you're using deflection and you want to deflect and move this to a different different topic, so you don't address this confrontation or this topic what I just brought up to you, right? And so you're in that space where you're forced to be able to really pay attention to things that the enemy might try to use in these other spaces where you're comfortable in to get you to not think that it doesn't apply to you.
That nothing's wrong.
That nothing's wrong. Exactly. Exactly. I think too, one of the other things you mentioned too was like, how like, like being at a place, like really trusting God. And one of the things we often talk about in the natural realm, right, is like, especially the phrase like protect your peace, right? We're always talking about protect your peace, protect your energy, right? This idea of experiencing joy, this idea of experiencing peace. And really, that peace comes from God. It's the gift of God. And if you're not a believer, it's more of a struggle to understand. I wouldn't even say more of a struggle, but it's when I'm a therapist, I'm trying to explain what peace is. I'm often trying to help a non-believer understand that peace is this internal experience that you have, that even when there's chaos around you, you still at a place of calm and stillness, right? But when you're talking to a believer in therapy, you're able to bring up and I recognize like God is peace. We know who he is. We know what the Bible says about who he is, being good and peace, so that when you are thinking about wanting to experience peace or joy, what you really are trying to do, what you really need to do or want to do is tap into the gift that God has you, where you're trusting that he has it and you're giving him the control. So even as therapists, when we're talking about letting go of control, right? When you're with a believer in therapy, you're able to say like letting go of control in the sense of like giving it to God and letting him handle it, right? But that's all the things we're talking about in therapy is like letting go of control, being able to like only focus on things you can control, working on acceptance if you're using ACT for acceptance commitment therapy, right? These are all things that really connect with what the word is challenging us to do as well as believers.
No, that was good.
Yeah. So what would you say, as we're wrapping things up, what would you say is one thing that you enjoy or appreciate about being unapologetic about your faith and therapy?
I get help sooner. When I'm not relying on my faith and I'm relying on myself, it allows me to be in secret about my sin, and secret about my struggle. And so being unapologetically a Christian, I know now I'm going to get my relief sooner if I lean on my brother or sister in Christ. I'm going to get my relief sooner if I take like a public notice that, hey, like, me too. I'm currently struggling with this. Me too. Have gone through this. Me too. Right now, just yesterday, said this or popped off with it. It gets me what I need sooner when I'm not hiding and I'm not afraid. When we're afraid and we just go hide, isolate. Isolate.
So
it gets me what I need much quicker than me thinking it being on my own and kind of trying to show as a person who got it all together, or I'm not going anything. Because let me tell you, they think therapists got it all together. No, we don't. I just told y'all, I'm a therapist with a therapist. We don't.
No, we don't. Listen, you and I were just talking about our struggles before we started recording. We were talking about our struggles. Yes. No, I love that, and I think that also speaks to just the mental health aspect of suffering in silence, right? Mm-hmm. Like many people, whether you're a believer or not, maybe are suffering in silence because they are not sharing because of the fearfulness of the judgment, right? Of the shame or the guilt. And so being unapologetic about your faith and your therapy, it helps you you automatically defeat the enemy because the enemy wants you to be silent so you can get stuck and not get the help that you need. And so that you can just be in this place where you think that only you can handle it, or you got to go this way that's not even the right way. But as soon as you open your mouth up, there's this freedom, and immediately God is then available to you to be able to work through you to get the help that you need when you don't suffer in silence. And the enemy doesn't want that. The enemy wants you to be weak so that there could be all these temptations that stop you from being the strong individual person that God has created you to be to overcome any struggle that you experience. So, thank you so much. This is a great conversation. So enjoyed it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as well. I hope this helps you become unapologetic about your faith and your therapy, whatever faith, even if you're not a believer or Christian, whatever faith you have, being unapologetic about whatever you believe in, having that faith, and also caring for your mental health unapologetically as well. Make sure you continue to check in on Unapologetic Living with Natasha for the next episodes of season 3. Go back to Mogul TV Global Network to check out seasons 1 and 2 as well, because let me tell you, those episodes are ones you don't want to miss either. And make sure you stay locked in so you don't miss another episode of season 3. And as always, make sure you be bold, be safe, and speak life.
Unapologetic.
Unapologetic living.